And sometimes I have to say, and it's not their fault, but devotees who come from, let's say, Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, Czech Republic, Estonia, um, they live in a country where the demographics, you know the word demographics?
Yes, yeah.
Where the demographics are very different than the demographics in America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, now England. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the distribution of different ethnicities is very different in those countries than in the Western countries. So, for example, in America, the Indian diaspora, right? Diaspora, is that how you say also maybe in Russian?
Diaspora. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
same.
yeah,
Yeah.
diaspora. Yeah, we know.
So,
Yeah,
so, so the Indian diaspora in America, it constitutes about 2% of the U.S. population, and in a way, it's very small. But in another sense, it's huge.
Mhm.
Whereas in the other country, first countries I mentioned, the Indian diaspora is insignificantly. It's small. It's probably point zero something. Maybe it's not even 0.5%, less, I would say. Why do I say this? Is because and I always have to frame what I'm going to say carefully because I don't want to have a misunderstanding that I'm racist or that I'm against people from India joining ISKCON. It's not at all the case. Everybody obviously is welcome to ISKCON, and in a way, we could say Indians have the first claim in a way because from a more sort of materialistic view, Vaishnavism is an Indian religion. So obviously, it's they have all the right, of course, in a way, before even anyone, we could say, to be members of ISKCON. So closing this parenthesis, we see a phenomena that Hridayananda Maharaj already saw coming, kind of seeing the future 20 years ago. And now it's like completely established where you go to a Sunday program at an ISKCON temple in Toronto or New York or Sydney or Melbourne or London, and especially the old established temples that were established in the 1970s with elaborate deity worship. Out of, let's say, Dallas, I mean, I remember a year ago I was in Dallas. I was at a Sunday feast and the temple room was full, maybe 500 people. And I looked around and I seriously, you saw it, you probably go to the Philadelphia temple and you see the same phenomena. You maybe will see 2, 3 white people in the audience,
yeah,
maybe one black person, one Spanish, Mexican person, maybe if you're lucky.
yes.
So then we come to this point. Okay, Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that there's details and there's principles, and the principles of Krishna consciousness we cannot change, we cannot tamper with. But the details, this is where we can adjust according to this famous Kala Desha Patra, time, place, and circumstance. And we are actually called by the parampara, even if we're small little devotees, which we are, to still take into consideration time, place, and circumstance and change, if necessary, the details while remaining very fixed and loyal to the principles, to the non-changing principles. And so how do we solve this problem of we could say, Indianization of ISKCON in the Western world? What can we do to attract more local people, who are white? For example, in America, I think it's 60% white people. So how do we attract more white people, and the blacks and the Latinos and the other small minorities? That's the big question. That's the big question. And Prabhupada, I think, our founder, several times made it clear that he was concerned to attract local people. In Africa, he complained to Brahmananda Swami, as you may know the story, when he went to Africa, to Nairobi, having sent Brahmananda Swami before to cultivate the field. And a few months later, when he came and Brahmananda Swami was taking him only to one Indian Hindu family after another, Prabhupada at one point said, "Did I come to Africa to preach to the Indians? I came to Africa to preach to the Africans." So that's the question I think that Hridayananda Maharaj tried to answer by starting a project called Krishna West, where the emphasis is the Western mission and the Western population with their cultural sensibilities in terms of food preferences, clothing preferences, language preferences, architectural preferences, gender roles preferences. And so I hope I'm doing justice to his rationale in this project.
Mhm.
When we lived in Russia and we heard about Krishna West, honestly, I didn't understand for what, because we don't have Indian people in Russia. Don't have, no,
Yeah,
a little bit.
yes.
But when we moved in
America.
we wasn't shocked. In our temple in Philadelphia on Sunday program, we have maybe 200 people every Sunday, and one
No, 80% maybe. 80% is
10 white people. Yeah, only 10.
10, no 10, 15 maybe, yes.
Это
Two-
правда, это правда.
Да, это правда.
Да. Yes.
Что?
Mhm.
Another question.
Next
Sure. Yes, go ahead.
After education people. We heard from Alexei that this movement attached educated people.
Attracts.
Attracts. Yeah,
Attracts.
sorry, attract educated people. I would like to understand why.
Oh, you mean the Krishna West project?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, right now, maybe because it's a very sort of conceptual. In a way, I believe that Krishna West has done more influence on ISKCON on an intellectual level and influence, like a think tank. I don't know if you know this word, a think tank. A think tank, if I may, Alexei Prabhu, is a think tank is a expression in America or in English speaking countries where it's a tank means like a container, and a think tank means it's a group of intelligent people who think and who come up with solutions for different. So there's different think tanks in the government and different departments. So in a way, I think Krishna West is more like a think tank that has influenced the rest of ISKCON in the West, who don't maybe call themselves Krishna West, but who have implemented the principles that we try to preach, which are very simple. Basically, it's not like some very sophisticated philosophy. I think the philosophy is the same as it's Prabhupada's teachings, but it's just that we have to be more culturally relevant. And so maybe intelligent people are attracted because usually intelligent, this is just a general observation, but people who are rich or who are intelligent, who are invested in society, in their society, they don't reject their society generally because they have a lot of investment in it, whether it's reputation, money, career. And so Krishna West is trying to present Krishna consciousness in a way that people can become Krishna conscious without having to reject their own, cultural heritage and preferences and styles and taste and aesthetic preferences and so on. And so perhaps because we're creating this space, then those people who actually like to be Russian, or maybe we would do Krishna Russia or Krishna Nigeria or Krishna China, but let's say in the context of America or the West, not the real, but the very West, like really Western countries, Krishna West is creating this field where, again, people who are educated, who are maybe rich, but of course everyone is welcome, but can feel secure and not ashamed that they have to somehow strip themselves naked at the door of ISKCON. You know, like there's a door of ISKCON, a symbolic door of ISKCON, and when you walk through that door, I mean, look, I've been to some temples in Ukraine, in Kiev, for example. Maybe I saw the same thing in Russia, but I clearly remember in Ukraine, it's not symbolic. It's literally true. Like in the middle of winter, it's minus 10 Celsius or minus 20 Celsius. And a congregation member, not even, a Chutapriya or someone who is giving a class, a simple Prabhu and a Mataji coming for the Sunday feast. They come in their, thick clothes, like Russian normal modern clothes, with a backpack, and they arrive through the door of ISKCON. You're smiling. And then what do they have? They go to a changing room. They literally, I can see you better. They go to a changing room, and there's, melted snow on the floor. So they have to stand up on a chair and take off their pants, and take out from their backpack a dhoti and, put a dhoti around their body so they can, it's true. So they can go to the temple room.
Yes, it's really, I know.
Haribol, Haribol, listen to the lecture, take prasad, go back, take off the dhoti on the chair because the floor is wet, and put their pants on and put the dhoti in the backpack and the sari and go home. So you literally have to strip of your own culture in order to go through the door of ISKCON. And this is where devotees like, I think, Ridana Maharaj, myself, other devotees, not necessarily in the Krishna West project, but are thinking, well, wait a second. Is this what our scripture says? Like, is this what the Bhagavad Gita, is this what our parampara expects of a Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi today? Is this actually justified in our scripture? Or is it maybe, a speculatia? Is it necessary? Like, is it an actual necessary step to become a pure devotee of Radha and Krishna? And we're questioning that. And I think we know, when you look at our scripture, you see actually the contrary. You see the opposite of this. You see the opposite. The scripture, our scriptures tend to say, no, wait a second. If you're a grihasta, if you're a householder, or if you're not a monk, then your duty is actually to fit in society, to actually be like a normal, exemplary member of your society. But at the same time, you are very different because you have love of Krishna in your heart, and you have a lifestyle which is pure and sattvaguna and devotion to Krishna, and so itagdali. For example,
Yes, go ahead.
But just one small observation, and this is, I say this again with all respect, really all respect for these devotees who do this. And what is this? For example, you see around the world in the West, you see Harinam parties where there's almost always now a group of 4 or 5 or 10 Russian Matajis, right? And they put on the same color sari, isn't it? With the same color fan.
Yes.
And they're doing the same dance, move. And again, like, their heart is pure, and they're doing Harinam Sankirtan, really all respect to them. But the question is this, again, what Shastra is telling us to do? Where is the justification in Shastra for women in the Harinam party to dress very differently from the other women in the society? But not just that, in the same exact colors, with the same exact moves. Like, I thought Krishna consciousness is individual, like every soul is individual. Every soul has an individual personality. Every soul has a individual relationship with Krishna. Every soul expresses love for Krishna and Radha Krishna and, the Krishna Balaram and so on, distinctly from others. Everybody has a unique rasa with Radha Krishna, with God. And so where is the justification to create a, what's it called? A sort of uniform, like almost like almost like a Vaikunta version of a communist regime, like it's a Goloka Vrindavan equivalent of a Maoist or Stalinist, everybody is the same and everybody does the same. No?
I think they применяют, как делают, doing Sankirtan principle. Every time the same Sankirtan is it's no individual, all. Как, Алексей, скажите, помогите мне, как? Что, ну, они применяют принцип Санкиртана, то есть мы все вместе делаем одинаково одно и то же. Это имеет как бы определенный эффект.
They're using the Sankirtan principle according to which everyone is performing the same activity.
Yes, Prabhu. What could say at the same time, what is Sankirtan activity? Sankirtan activity, we could say, is nothing more and nothing less than trying to be in Sattva Guna, not Indian Guna, but Sattva Guna, and chant Hare Krishna, chant the holy name of God. That with humility, not like a show, not like a spectacle, like a circus, but actually, very humbly, Trinadapi Sunichena. So we could ask a question: Is it humble to go in the streets of St. Petersburg, which is such a beautiful city, and to dress differently from the gentlemen and gentle ladies, and the aristocratic, culture that unfortunately was destroyed so much by the communist regime, but you still see so much of the culture there in a way that is completely different from the local culture. Is that humble? Is that echoing, echoing like echo?
Yes.
Is that echoing? You could use it as a verb, like and it's a word, an echo, or to echo is also a verb, to make the word have an echo, right? The act of creating echo is to echo. So is this echoing the Srimad Bhagavatam principle of remaining in your situation? There's a very important verse in the 10th canto which I think is the most important verse that justifies Krishna West, really. It's 10:14:3, where Brahma, in the prayers to Krishna, is saying this third line, stanestitaha, which means while remaining in one's established social situation. So in St. Petersburg, for example, you have a normal, established culture, high-class culture of dressing, for example, where everybody understands this is a normal, correct way of dressing. And you can be, atheistic, you can be Orthodox, you can be Jewish, you can be Protestant, you can be, Muslim, but, basically there's a standard way of dressing, for example, in St. Petersburg. And the Hare Krishnas come, and the Hare Krishnas are saying by their nonverbal message that this culture is not good. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to engage in God's service. We have to use the culture, and we could say now, okay, but this is the culture of Goloka Vrindavan. It's a culture of the spiritual world. And that brings another question. That, okay, even if it is the so-called culture of the spiritual world, first of all, that creates many problems, because then Yukta Vairagya is thrown out the window. Secondly, is tennis shoes part of the spiritual culture? Is, a warm jacket part of the spiritual culture? Is a computer part of the spiritual culture? Is a car and a microphone part of the spiritual culture? So where do you draw the line between what is the imitation of the spiritual culture and the material culture? Becomes very strange. And who decides what is culture from the spiritual world and what is culture from the material world? So that's number one. But even if it is, again, it's creating this. You cannot, like Ridananmar says. I like when he says you cannot try to save a people and at the same time spit on their culture. It doesn't work.
That's a good one. Let me translate
Я
real
хотел
quick.
ставить два слова можно?
Давайте я буквально в 2 словах переведу основную идею, и с этого момента мы можем уже перейти к диалогу, с моей помощью. I wanna translate in a nutshell what you said, just to make sure we're all on the same page, and then if you still have a few minutes, the Irina and Vitaly asked me to spend the last few minutes, using my, interpreting in order to ask you some of the tougher questions. But first of all, let me translate the part about, spitting on the local culture. Буквально в
Хорошо.
2 словах основные моменты, особенно, сильные. Ирина говорила, будем мы сильные фразы использовать или нет. Так вот, он делает первый шаг. Так вот, а, основная идея в чем? На примере вот этой вот, санкиртаны, когда женщины вместе танцуют, яркие одежды и так далее, не является ли это плевком в местную культуру, которая считается, допустим, в Санкт-Петербурге, интеллигентной, высококультурной, высокообразованной и так далее? Не противопоставляем ли мы индийскую культуру, назначая ее как духовную, как основную, местной?
Мгм. Да, это мы поняли, Алексей, да.
Мгм. Какой ваш
Ам,
ответ?
Нет, да я
ну,
понял. Вопрос у меня был такой, что как раз мы в этом можем запутаться, и поэтому преданные берут учение Прабхупады. То есть Прабхупада, как он сказал, да, Чандршекхар Прабху сказал, что где здесь эта линия разграничения, где как бы... И вот она вот
Окей,
здесь.
давайте я буду переводить короткими фразами. Поехали.
Да. Да-да-да.
Поехали.
Yes, как раз, ну как я сказал, что то, что...
где
You
линия?
said that it can be tricky to draw
Да,
the line.
наша линия разграничения, как мы действуем в рамках учения Прабхупады.
So the way we draw the line is that we try to stick to Prabhupada's teaching.
Да, мы как бы, я не на стороне этих преданных. Я тоже пытаюсь понять, как достучаться до локальных людей, как бы, как им преподнести сознание Кришны, да? Переведите, да, Алексей.
I'm also looking for ways of presenting Krishna consciousness in the most attractive and approachable manner.
Да, но у нас, с другой стороны, у нас есть учение Прабхупада и то, что Прабхупаде нравилось, как делалось.
On the other hand, we know exactly what Prabhupada preached and what he liked and what he didn't.
Do we?
Да.
Вы уверены, что у нас есть такая информация?
Do we? I'll tell you a story. Пожалуйста.
Давайте, я.
Gargamuni Prabhu, Gargamuni Prabhu, you know, the brother of
Yes,
Brahmananda?
I know, yeah, yes.
So he tells a very interesting story, and it's written. You know, I can send you. Actually, as a matter of fact, I have a very nice document with all the collection of many statements of Prabhupada that nobody knows because no one has done the research
У
that
меня
are
есть
there.
список огромного количества цитат Шрилы Прабхупады, о которых очень мало кто знает.
So Gargamuni remembers that when the devotees purchased the ISKCON Los Angeles temple,
Гаргамония вспоминает, что когда был куплен храм в Лос-Анджелесе,
it was a Christian church.
это была
Мгм.
христианская церковь.
And according to Gargamuni Prabhu, Prabhupada said, "Oh, very nice. Keep it exactly as it is."
И Шрила Прабхупада сказал, ничего не меняйте, оставьте все как есть.
That means the wooden, in English, we call them pews, where people sit.
Мгм.
I know in Orthodox Church you stand, you know, but in the Protestant and Catholic churches, you can sit in these
У
wooden,
протестантов служба идет сидя, поэтому те места, где сидят прихожане,
или католик.
Мгм.
у католиков, да.
So Prabhupada said, keep them. And we have photos. We have black and white photos of devotees sitting in the pews and Prabhupada sitting behind what is called the pulpit, you know, where the preacher or the preacher speaks.
И у нас есть черно-белые фотографии, на которых видно, что там, где прихожане сидят, там сидят преданные, и там, где Шрила Прабхупада за главным, на главном месте тоже видно, что все было так, как он сказал.
And Prabhupada wanted people to come with their shoes. Don't even take off your shoes. Come in with your shoes.
Прабхупада даже говорил, не нужно даже снимать обувь, когда вы заходите.
Like Gargamuni says, his words is Prabhupada was imagining doctors and lawyers, but we were thinking, oh, you should shave your head and join the temple.
Потому что Шрила Прабхупада рассчитывал, что будут доктора и адвокаты и так далее, а мы считали, что нет, мы сейчас побреем головы и станем все брахмачари.
Duh. And so what happened? They took out the chairs, they took out the pews, they disobeyed Prabhupada's
Yes.
wish.
Они нарушили желание Шрилы Прабхупады, убрали оттуда всю мебель.
I'm not denying that, for example, for dress, that Prabhupada brought saris back to America, that he sometimes said that the dhoti is very beautiful. I'm not denying this.
Я не отрицаю, что вайшнавская одежда была принесена на Запад именно Шрилой Прабхупадой. Он говорил, что дхоти прекрасно, это очень чистая духовная одежда.
But I think the first generation put way more importance on dress than Prabhupada did.
Но первое поколение, я уверен в том, что первое поколение преданных поставило гораздо больше акцент, сделало гораздо больше акцент на одежде, чем сам Прабхупада.
One time Prabhupada said, dhoti, I did not introduce dhoti, you introduced dhoti. It's right there.
В одном из отрывков Прабхупада говорит «доти», и я не наставил на доти, вы настояли на том, чтобы носить доти.
This obsession with having a shika for grihastas, it's an obsession.
То же самое одержимость по поводу шики для грехастх. Это просто одержимость.
And there's this belief that, if you are a good devotee, if you're a good grihasta Vaishnava, then you should have a shaved head and a shika.
И есть такое представление, что если ты настоящий грехастха, ну ты не можешь быть просто без шики.
But you see Prabhupada's writings, in Prabhupada's own example, he encouraged grihastas to have normal hair also.
Но Шрила Прабхупада в то же время и воодушевлял людей, чтобы у них были обычные прически у грехастх.
So to say that we know exactly what Prabhupada wanted, at least in terms of dress, I don't think many devotees know everything that Prabhupada actually said about dress.
Поэтому утверждать вот так вот однозначно, что мы точно знаем, что хотел Шрила Прабхупада, что ему нравилось, что нет, не все так черно-белое.
You are in America now.
Вы в Америке
Да.
еще.
So one Prabhupada disciple, his name is Balavanta Prabhu, and he lives in Alachua. He's a retired lawyer. And as you know, in the 1970s, devotees in America started a political party called the In God We Trust political party. Да?
В 70-х годах преданные в Америке основали партию, которая называлась «В Бога мы верим».
And Satsarup Maharaj, the author of, the Lilamrita, he tells one story. Да? You follow, right? If I speak like this, you understand.
Absolutely, yes. Сатсваруп Махарадж, автор Лиламриты, описывает.
He showed a photograph to Prabhupada of Balavanta Prabhu dressed in a like this, basically, in a nice shirt and a nice jacket with normal hair, no shika.
Он показал Прабхупаде фотографию Балаванты Праду полностью в западной одежде, без шики, в обычной одежде, чистой, культурной.
And Prabhupada сказал, this is what I want, that we be known, that means by the greater American public, that we be known in America, okay? That we be known, this is what I want, that we be known as the American Hare Krishnas, the American Krishnas.
И Прабхупада сказал, что да, я именно этого и хочу, чтобы о нас отзывались, чтобы мы были известными как американские Кришны.
Да. So we can argue that on the one side, Prabhupada he dreamed that his Grihasta Western devotees become prominent influences in their own culture. And then his followers, many of them are saying, no, we want to be Vedic, we want to be Indian. And there's like a contradiction.
С одной стороны, мы видим, что Шрила Прабхупада утверждает, что это моя мечта. Я мечтаю о том, чтобы западные преданные в рамках собственной культуры становились кришнаитами. В то же время мы видим, как преданные отрицают свою культуру и пытаются настаивать на том, что нет, 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 только ведические, только индийские варианты являются истинно духовными.
Можно
And
вопрос?
the conclusion. Oh, пожалуйста, пожалуйста.
Sorry. Чашка Прабhu, но вот любое религиозное движение, оно имеет внешнее отождествление какое-то.
Any religious movement has some kind of external image.
Okay, but we have to really distinguish what is this external image.
Мы видим католиков, это определенная одежда, мы видим христиан. Вот мы ездили недавно в Нью-Йорк, мы видели ортодоксальных иудеев.
Okay,
Okay.
but now
Okay.
you are in America. I invite you, Prabhu, to go, because America is a prominent Protestant country, not Catholic, not Orthodox. It's Protestant is the majority religion. I invite you, please. And I'm not joking. I think every temple president in America should do this, should go to a Protestant church on a Sunday service. Okay?
Я вам предлагаю, вот вы находитесь сейчас в Америке. Америка это доминирована протестантская страна в основном. Я вам предлагаю, зайдите в протестантскую церковь.
And look how the pastor is dressed.
И посмотрите, как одет пастор.
If he's not speaking, you could not even tell that he's a religious leader.
Если он не выступает, вы даже его вообще не узнаете в нем никакого духовного лидера.
The biggest preacher of Christianity in the modern world is actually a Protestant American called Billy Graham. Maybe you've heard of him? Billy Graham.
Один из самых известных проповедников.
I mean, he was empowered, like amazing. A very good grihasta. His wife was an exemplary wife and mother. He died maybe 15, 20 years ago. He preached in the 1950s, 60s. There's actually a picture of him in Russia, dressed like a normal gentleman, speaking to an Orthodox priest, with their beards and their black dress, but he's dressed normally. So my
Есть
point is
фотография,
that
на которой Билли Грэм находится в России и разговаривает с ортодоксальным христианином православным российским, одетым в соответствующую религиозную одежду, в то время как Билли Грэм одет по-простому, по-мирски.
Not every religious group has an external symbol.
Поэтому мы не можем сказать, что у каждой религиозной группы есть свой какой-то внешний вид.
And the second point is when you look at, okay, let's look at our own tradition.
Давайте посмотрим на нашу традицию с исторической точки зрения.
If we have a very distinct symbol, it should be mentioned in Shastra.
Если у нас действительно такой есть конкретно вариант для внешнего вида, то он должен быть указан в шастре.
Rupa Goswami mentions two things only in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar of Devotion.
Рупа Госвами указывает только два момента в Бхакти Расамрита Синдху.
Tulsi
and
Tilak.
I know his position. Yeah.
But Shika, many Hindus have Shika who are Mayavadis, meat eaters, nothing to do with Bhakti. And Dhoti and Sari, millions of Hindus who have nothing to do with Vishnu or Radha Krishna wear Sari and Dhoti. So, okay, if we want to, Shukadev Goswami was naked. Shukadev Goswami, he was naked. I mean, think about it. If dress is so important, why is the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam naked?
Если одежда настолько важна, почему тот, кто дает нам Шримад Бхагаватам, сидит вообще без одежды?
So, Tilak and Tulsi, okay, no problem. Это Vaishnava symbol. Nobody in the world has this. Only Vaishnava have this. Only Vaishnava have this. Okay, harasho. But Dhoti, Sari, and Shika, this is not Vaishnava symbol. I'm sorry. It's not. It's just not. Historically, it's not. It never was, and it never will be.
Никогда не было, никогда не будет исключительными вайшнавскими признаками.
Чандрашкар Прабху. Мы опираемся в шастре. Я знаю, Хридан Махарадж там и пытался, не знаю, там и не в шруте, но в Ведах найти, как бы, вот, что там нет ничего, что нет цари упоминания, что нет доти упоминания, что это принесенные вещи все, но мы должны оперироваться на Прабхупаду. Что Прабхупада нам говорил? И
It
что
is
Прабхупада
true.
записал в книгах, что он записал в книгах, понимаете? То, что это личные беседы какие-то, еще что-то, это все хорошо. Через 10 тысяч лет все забудут личные беседы, но все будут читать книги Прабхупады. Что там написано? Как Прабхупада описывает преданного, как Прабхупада как бы говорит, как мы должны жить. Вот, Алексей, перейдите, пожалуйста.
There are certain things which Srila Prabhupada wrote in general, not in some private conversations, but for general masses of devotees. And that's what we should be basing our ideas on, because that's what will survive the future generations.
Yeah, I agree. And when you say that, when you said that we know what Prabhupada wanted, one thing we definitely know what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted his mission in the Western countries to be a success and not a failure.
Когда вы сказали, что мы знаем, чего хотел Шрила Прабхупада, мы можем согласиться все на том, что он однозначно хотел, чтобы его миссия в западном
And
мире была успешна.
Yes.
and it just it's a fact. It's a sociological fact. This is like 100% fact. This is like mathematics. It's
Yes.
like, like gravity. You drop something, this is gravity. Whether this is like a Chinese box or Indian box or Russian box, if you drop it, gravity will affect.
Yes.
So,
Есть
in
законы
the same
природы,
way,
которые действуют независимо от того, какой мы национальности. Точно так же
this is a very important principle of sociology of religion to understand,
Yes.
в
and
социологии
psychology of
тоже есть определенные законы, которые действуют на всех, независимо от национальной принадлежности.
if you have two groups of people,
У вас есть две группы людей
with two different cultures
с двумя разными культурами,
and two different religions,
двумя разными религиями.
it is a fact that the more cultural similarities there are, food, language, architecture, dress, и так далее, between group A and group B, the more similarities there are,
Неоспоримым фактом является то, что чем больше культурных сходств между этими группами,
the higher is the rate of conversion. That means more people convert from the religion of group A to the religion of group B.
тем больше будет количество людей, которые со временем перейдут из религии А в религию Б.
And in the exact opposite way, the more cultural differences there are between group A and group B, the less is the rate of conversion of people who convert from religion A to the religion of group B.
И наоборот, чем больше мы видим культурных различий между двумя этими группами, тем меньше людей будут переходить из одной религии в другую.
And so you look in America, you look at the Bhakti Center, for example. You know this Bhakti Center in Manhattan?
Смотрим, например, на центр Бхакти в Манхэттене.
Right? Or the Mantra Lounge in Los Angeles. The preaching. We have different programs in America where the local preachers, the devotees, they dress like normal American people.
Мы видим, что есть центры, в которых проповедники одеваются как местные мирские люди.
So, more cultural similarities. Да?
То есть они обращают внимание на сходство
And
культуры.
in those communities, 100% the number of white people and black people and Mexican people who come to the program is much, much, much higher than the communities in America where everybody is in sari and dhoti. It's just a fact.
В таких общинах это просто факт. Процент людей, которые приходят местных на эти программы, гораздо выше, чем в центрах, где все настаивают на том, чтобы одеваться в индийскую одежду.
So even and I'll finish with this, even if what I just said is not justified in Shastra, it would still be justified because in this case, the end justifies the means. Prabhupada would be very happy with this type of adjustment, even if it wasn't, what he originally wanted or what our Shastra says.
Даже если бы то,
We're
о чем я
saving souls.
говорю,
We're saving souls. There's nothing more important than saving souls.
Даже если бы то, о чем я говорю, не было основано на шастрах, все равно оно заслуживало бы внимания, поскольку цель оправдывает средства, а наша цель — спасти максимальное количество душ. И поэтому мы должны выбирать философию и метод поведения, который спасет максимальное количество душ, то есть то, о чем я только что сказал.
But what's interesting, I find, is that this approach is actually is the most loyal to the conclusion of Shastra and of Prabhupada.
Но если говорить о Шриле Прабхупаде и о том, к чему сводятся все веды, то это и есть то, что находится в полном соответствии.
What about deities worship? I'm
О,
a temple.
that's a big one. Ooh.
I say openly that it is Indian chauvinism. It is Indian chauvinism. It is racism. Again, that in order to go on an altar to worship the Sri Murti of Radha Krishna, same thing. You have to give up your external culture. I dream one day we'll see, traditional Russian women dressed in clean, modest Russian dress and Ukrainian dress and, a Taiwanese dress. And why not a jalaba if they're from Morocco or Tunisia or Saudi Arabia, local clean dress that is clean, because cleanliness is very important for deity worship. You have to be 100% clean. This is pure sattva guna. But why not? Of course, we should have pujaris dressing in clean pants or long skirts or traditional Russian clothes or traditional African clothes or traditional Chinese clothes in Russia, in China, in local countries. Of course.
Окей, то есть, если
Again,
это чисто, Ирина, если это чисто, если это скромно, если это полностью относится к гуне благости, почему нет? Ответьте, Прабhu.
where is the line between mode of goodness and another modes?
It's pretty easy. It's called cleanliness. At least, are we talking about clothes or are we talking about food or what are we
Close,
talking about?
yeah, close, yes.
Clothes is two things. Is it doesn't attract unnecessary, attention to your body. That's why
Не
we talk about
привлекает
being
лишнего
modest.
внимания к телу.
So of course, you should not go on the altar in a bikini, and men should not go on the altar, whatever, with some pants showing half of their butt. Or, of course, so modesty,
Скромность,
chastity,
чистота.
and cleanliness, impeccably clean.
Максимальная
That's sattva.
чистота с физической точки зрения.
That's sattva guna.
Через, может быть, 100-200 лет нормой будет полуголыми ходить. И мы должны, соответственно, принять такой же образ мышления. То есть это будет нормой в обществе, и мы как бы должны так же действовать. На
Okay,
алтаре
so what if
исповедовать так.
so you're saying that we should always keep in mind what the society norms are, and we should take that into account. Well, Kali Yuga is developing. What if down the road, a couple of 100 years ago, people are going to go walk naked? Then it would be acceptable to go naked on the altar using your logic.
That's a good point. That's a good point because, for example, in Zulu culture, in African cultures in Africa, but then there is historical evidence that in South India, before Muslim influence, women were walking without any bra in South India. It's a historical fact. So it's almost like using these extreme examples, like, okay, in Alaska there is no vegetables, so can we eat meat, can we eat fish, or what if a woman is raped, can we abort the child? I mean, these are difficult extreme examples, but why are we talking about Kali Yuga? Let's talk about now, like right now. If we continue in this way now, in 20 years there is no more Western Hare Krishna movement in the
Почему мы
West. It's
говорим о
over.
том, что будет через 200 лет? Да тут через 20 лет от Искона ничего не останется, если мы будем дальше вести себя так, как мы себя ведем.
Ну, может быть.
And we also understand, like, sattva guna, knowledge comes from sattva. Like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that sattva, the result of sattva is knowledge. And so that's why people have a intuition. They know what is right, what is wrong. So yes, okay, the influence of Kali is there, but we have to have faith that Krishna, dadami bhuti yogam tam, that Krishna will give us the intelligence to understand, okay, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable.
Мы просто должны оставаться верными гуне благости, и мы знаем из Бхагавад-гиты, Кришна говорит, что знание проистекает из гуны благости. Если мы зацепимся за гуну благости, то мы со временем, даже через 200 лет, будем ориентироваться и в этом вопросе тоже. Как себя
You
вести.
see, to go from a nice pants and shirt to naked, this is a degradation for sure. But to go from dhoti to nice pants is not at all a degradation. You
Понятно, что
understand? This is very
если мы
important.
идем, если мы идем из одетого состояния в обнаженное, то это деградация. Но если мы переходим из индийской одежды в чистую западную одежду, здесь нет ни малейшей деградации.
Very important. But we have been brainwashed. It's true. We have been brainwashed to always think that everything Indian is better and everything, Russian or Western is bad.
Нам просто
Always.
промыли мозги, нам втирают как могут идею о том, что все, что индийское, это великолепно, это чисто, это прекрасно, а все, что западное, это отвратительно, мерзко и
And
тому
this
подобное.
is the influence of Kali. I believe this is actually Kali himself. Like, the Christian, they think of Satan, who is trying to bring darkness to the world. And,
Я считаю,
we
что
believe,
именно в этом и проявляется Кали-юга.
I believe, we believe in Kali, who's trying to stop Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Today is actually Lochan Das Thakur's
взглядов.
appearance day. Today, is Lochan Das Thakur's appearance day in India. Maybe yesterday it was for you in America. Lochan Das Thakur is the author of Chaitanya Mangal. And in Chaitanya Mangal, Kali himself, Kali personified, is saying, I want to stop Nimai Pandit. I want to stop his Sankirtan movement. Понимаю?
В одном из писаний, да, автором которого сегодня день явления, говорится, Кали сама говорит о том, что моя задача остановить движение Санкиртана, я буду делать все.
So I believe that Kali is always trying to infiltrate into the Sankirtan movement through fighting, through quarrel, through, breaking the regulative principles.
Кали
Да?
пытается помешать развитию движения Санкиртаны через вот такие вот варианты воздействия, через ссоры, через нарушение принципов.
But he's also, and he succeeded very well so far in convincing, the Eastern European and the Western European white Vaishnavas, basically, that their culture is not good enough and that they should, become culturally Indian, culturally Bengali in order to worship Radha Krishna. This is Kali's influence.
У Кали
I
очень хорошо получается. И я считаю, что это именно его влияние в том, что западные преданные в большинстве своем считают свою собственную культуру ниже индийской и менее достойной с духовной точки зрения.
Чаша Прабу, вопрос такой, что, слушая вас, вы ставите западную культуру, исходящую из, в каком-то смысле из вожделения, и есть так называемая индийская культура, как говорите, индийская культура. Но это не индийская культура. Мы сможем, если прочитаем книгу Кришна Самхита Бхактивинода Тхакура, где он описывает историю возникновения всех родов. Он рассказывает, что на берегу Ганги жили тогда полубоги. То есть это вот ведическая культура, она оттуда, то, на что мы ориентируемся на ведическую культуру. Мы не считаем ее индийской как бы.
We're focusing on the ancient Vedic tradition as it is described in the scriptures. We're not necessarily focusing on Indian culture per se.
Well, first of all, I have to say your tree, your Christmas tree, I can't help but look at it. It's really beautiful.
I know good devotees. No sympathy.
No, your tree, your Christmas tree, your Christmas tree is really
Я в
beautiful.
восторге от вашей елки.
Серьезно. It's like, wow, it's beautiful. Now, so how much, this is a historical question.
Yes.
How much has the culture from 5,000 years ago been absolutely free of any type of external influence from other parts of the world in India? And the answer Almost never. Even in Mahabharata, we have stories of kings who come from different parts of the world to Hastinapur to offer gifts. There's trade. There's exchange of trade going thousands of years back.
Есть ли у нас
You have
опыт так, чтобы на протяжении тысячелетий культура не менялась вообще? Нет, у нас такого опыта нету. Посмотрите, что происходило в Хасинапуре и многих других местах. Культуры проникали друг в друга, люди обменивались товарами.
Yes.
you have 2,000 years of Muslim influence.
У нас 2000 лет на влияние
Or-
ислама.
I don't know if it's 2,000, but centuries of Islamic influence.
Многовековое влияние.
The word halava is like baklava. It comes from the Middle East. Kurtas come from
I
the
know.
Middle East.
I know. It's
Okay.
about-
So then what we have to ask our question is, okay, what is the definition of Vedic culture? And we should look for this definition in our own Shastra.
Мы
Right?
должны задать себе вопрос, каково определение вайшнавской ведической культуры и постараться найти ответ на этот вопрос в шастрах.
Mhm. Yes.
And our own Shastra defines Vedic culture as something very simple, actually.
И
And it is
наши
this.
шастры дают очень простое определение ведической культуре.
Mode of goodness engaged in Krishna service with devotion. That's it. That's Vedic.
Гуна благости и служение Кришне.
Mode of goodness, which implies, of course, relationships of chastity, of following the four regulative principles, of being pure morally, responsible morally, the duty of the husband, the duty of the wife. All that is within the mode of goodness, but it doesn't have to look Indian. It
Гуна
can look.
благости подразумевает в себя, включает в себя прежде всего следование регулирующим принципам,
I mean,
но
if
ни в
you look
коем
in Russia,
не
there's
выглядеть как индус.
in Russia, and I saw in Ukraine also, and even in America, there's very, very traditional Christian communities, isn't it?
Я видел в России есть очень, очень сильные традиции по христианской линии. Есть общины, которые следят за этими традициями.
But they don't dress like Palestinians dressed 2,000 years ago in the time of Jesus in Jerusalem.
Но они не одеваются так, как одевались палестинцы в Израиле 2000 лет назад, во времена Иисуса.
They dress like local Russians or local Ukrainians, but they're very Vedic. They're
Они
very Vedic because
Они
they're following
одеваются
Vedic
так, как
principles.
одеваются местные люди в это время.
Ну, все правильно, и непонятно, к чему они придут.
They do. The thing is, what is their future as a community?
That's another topic. But my point is that Vedic culture does not have to look Bengali. Vedic culture can look Russian, can look
Моя
French,
главная
can look
идея в том,
Italian.
что ведическая культура не обязана быть похожей на бенгальскую культуру. Это может быть и
I
русская, и
understand.
любая другая.
Yeah, understand. Yeah, I'm only discuss is different point with subject about this subject.
Да. No, it's a good question.
If I may jump in for a question, and we are approaching the time that we have. We are very
Пожалуйста.
grateful, very, very, very grateful to you for dedicating
It's
so
my
much
turn.
time
All
for us.
glories to
There was, and I'm kind of initiating this now because I know that our devotees are maybe a little bit embarrassed or on the shy. They were not so much so 1 hour earlier, but I want to use this opportunity to hear you on this issue. Я хочу спросить у Прабhu по поводу Хридананда Даса Госвами и шорты, матаджи в шортах, кепка и так далее. Давайте послушаем комментарий на эту тему.
Yeah.
The question is, both Irina and Vitaly have seen on many occasions Hridananda Dasa Goswami giving class, wearing baseball cap, wearing shorts. Mataji is sitting in front of him, also wearing shorts. And that does not seem like a pure mode of goodness to them.
Mm.
To Irina and Vitaly.
Look, the way I answer this is this way, and this is my view of Hridayananda Maharaj on this topic. the grihastas. You see, the real problem is not the sannyasis. The actual problem is the grihastas.
Основная
I'm
проблема
100%
не с саньяси, а именно с грехастхами.
the grihastas. I'm not talking about, the four regulative principles. We have to follow those very strictly as best we can. I'm not
Ни-
talking about being,
Никто не сомневается в необходимости следовать 4 регулирующим принципам.
okay? I'm not talking about loosening or diluting our moral responsibilities and
Я не говорю о
principles
том,
and
чтобы
vows.
понизить
okay?
какие-то моральные стандарты. Речь не об этом.
But the amount of cultural artificial renunciation on the part of the grihastas in the Eastern Europe and Western Europe is so monumental. It's so gargantuan. It's so gigantic.
Количество искусственного отречения со стороны грехастых просто превосходит все возможные размеры.
That it's paradoxical. It's a paradox that a sannyasi has to show the example.
И парадокс заключается в том, что в итоге получается, что саньяси должен показывать пример грехастхам.
Now, I'm not saying that, okay, a sannyasi should, first of all, if he's wearing shorts and giving class, it's not in an ISKCON temple. It's not on a Vyasasana. It's probably in a picnic or some morning walk. And it's
Если
hot
Махарадж в
outside.
шортах, то это
He's
вряд ли в
sitting on the
храме.
bench.
Если он сидит
Sitting
где-то
on the
перед
bench.
матой, это какой-то
There's
сабантуй
men,
местный.
there's other men there. It's not like he's
In the
alone with
house.
some woman. So you have to remember the context. Like I remember he gave sannyas initiation to one sannyasi disciple of his who's now a sannyasi in Brazil, in Italy 7 years ago. And when he gave the initiation ceremony at an ISKCON temple, he wore his saffron clothes.
Мгм.
Была церемония, на которой он давал саньясу в Бразилии своему ученику. И
But like the Orthodox priest, who's a grihasta most of the time, but even if he's a brahmachari or a sannyasi, he doesn't wear his altar clothes all the time. When he goes to somebody's home, he doesn't have to always wear the religious uniform. So in a similar way, Hridayananda Maharaj maybe more than should be, but hey, he's from California. I'm sorry, California is a relaxed culture. Southern California is a relaxed culture. Okay, I'm sorry, that's just life. Okay, even in America, New York, Philadelphia, Boston is more like
Yes.
Europe, and California is just like relax, bro. That's just reality. Okay, so having said this, yes, maybe he should maybe wear pants more, but Prabhupada told Bhakti Sarup Damodar Maharaj for the Bhaktivedanta Institute, who was a sannyasi, to put, you have photograph of Bhakti Sarup Damodar Maharaj preaching, in the scientific community with his PhD from University of California in scientific communities, with a suit and tie, and he's a sannyasi. You see Bhakti Tirtha Swami, the way Bhakti Tirtha Swami was amazing. When he preached in Africa, he was dressed like an African, chieftain with all sorts of African, design and everything. The point is we have to preach intelligently and we have to communicate with others.
Ну да, так вот, как бы выглядит так, что привлекать мы должны людей вот как на ихнем языке. Но дальше Бхактивинода Махарадж ходил в саньяси, как бы он ходил в саньяс одежде.
Okay,
Вот
let's make it the last point. Yes, that was a logical progression. I'm glad we reached this point. So what Vitaly is saying is that I have no problem with using certain Krishna West principles to attract as an initial strategy.
No,
But
no.
then
No.
you know
This is
that point,
called,
right?
You know what this is called? This is called the
Yeah.
bridge to India. It's called
The
the
bridge to India. Это называется
sect-
мост в Индию, то, о чем вы говорите.
It's a sect mentality. No serious religious movement in the
Это
history of the world.
сектантское мировоззрение, сектантское...
No serious, I'm sorry, but no serious religious movement in the history of this planet has a strategy of showing some sort of facade and then having,
Ни
a back
одно
offer
религиозное
that-
движение
with the-
серьезное никогда не было успешным, если оно вначале показывает какой-то фасад, за которым скрывается якобы то, что ждет на самом деле людей.
This dhoti, sari, sabji, rice culture is not superior even by 1 milligram to, clean, modest, mode of goodness, Russian food or American food or Russian clothes or American clothes. Not
Если вы
even 1 milligram
проповедуете
better. We
сабджит
really have to
хоти,
remember.
если вы проповедуете сабджит хоти и все остальное индийское, это все ни на йоту, ни на сантиметр не является выше в духовной иерархии, чем русская еда или русская одежда в той же гуне благости.
Some nice Olivier salad offered with bhakti is not 1 milligram less pleasing to Krishna than the preparations mentioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his poems or by Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Любой салат оливье ни на каплю не уступает любому индусскому блюду.
I will cook Olivier salad for
Jai.
New Year.
Прабhu, а как, what about principle Шрила Прабхупада, когда он сказал, что я еду туда не учиться ложкой есть, а учиться есть и учить их руками есть? Алексей,
At one point, Prabhupada said, I'm not going there to teach them how to eat with a spoon. I'm going there to teach them how to eat with hands.
A few things we could say to that. First of all, we cannot build a philosophy from isolated statements from Prabhupada. Number
Нельзя
one.
построить философию на базе одного высказывания Шрилы Прабхупады, отдельно взятого.
That's the number one thing. It's important. We have to always look at what Prabhupada says in the context of what the Bhagavatam or what Chaitanya Charitamrita or what the previous acharyas say. We have to always look at the global theological, historical
Всегда
context.
надо смотреть на более широкий контекст.
Secondly, okay, he said this, but then at the same time, he was, Prabhupada also changed his moods, changed his minds.
Прабхупада и время от времени тоже менял свое настроение, иногда даже передумывал какие-то идеи.
I know, yes.
And if Prabhupada came, physically in his physical body, and he came, and we took him to all the temples in North America, where sometimes even the Sunday feast lecture is in Hindi. It's not even in English, right? If we took him around, if we said, Prabhupada, 2025, this is the status of your movement in America. You sacrificed your life to come to America. You suffered 2 heart attacks to preach to the Americans. To the Americans, first and foremost, Paschatya Desha. You even wrote Paschatya Desh, the Western countries, the Western people, the white people, primarily, including Russians, because we're the same race. The politics creates division. But actually, we're, the Russians and the Americans, the Westerners, it's basically the white civilization. Prabhupada came with that first, mission to save that community, knowing that community will influence the rest of the world. And if we told him today, Prabhupada, please come and see your temples. And if he came and he saw that every single one of our temples is 99%, glorious, respected, itagdale, members of the Indian immigrant diaspora. And if we said, but Prabhupada, when we do have preaching centers where devotees are dressed in normal clothes like normal Americans, which you said, this is what I always wanted, more people from this white majority people come, what do you think Prabhupada would say? What do you think Prabhupada would say? That's the question we have to ask.
Как бы
What would he
отреагировал
say?
Шрила Прабхупада, если бы сейчас он посетил свои храмы и увидел, что происходит, и 99% индусов, и так далее, и так далее?
Он бы сменил бы политику, сменил бы, направление проповеди.
He would definitely switch gears.
I think so.
Надо заканчивать.
заканчивать.
Нам нужно идти, Алексей уже нас там
I'm
делает.
sorry, we have to finish because
Yes,
I have
we
my
all gotta
sorrow
go.
in the temple on the altar
I'm
because I'm
sure you
Pujari.
gave us a lot of food for thought, not only from linguistic point of view, but also philosophical and spiritual.
Thank you. I didn't know we would have a discussion about enculturation. It's my favorite topic. So, thank you so much. And I wish I was in a better consciousness. I bless your forgiveness. I beg your forgiveness for my not so pure consciousness today. I'm sorry. I wish I was in a more pure Krishna conscious state of consciousness. I beg your forgiveness.
Thank you so much for your opinion. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. It was really very, very interesting.
Interesting.